Hey guys, welcome back to New World Carpentry Solutions, and continuing on from the video yesterday, what we need to do now that we have all the boards milled to the proper thickness and all the rough surfaces taken off, I need to clean up the rounded edges and this rough surface that's on the outside of each one of these boards. So I'm planning to actually rip all these pretty much in half. That way I get 2 planks out of each one. I plan to make a set of planners with spacings in them, and that pretty much makes the board go further. So if I have a 5.5 inch board and I rip it to 2 3/4 or 2 5/8, but then put a 3/4 inch space in between each plank, technically each deck board is now covering more surface area. Now I plan to actually use a lot of these for a set of small planners. The ones I'm planning to make first are going to be like I think they end up being 18 by 18, maybe like 18 inches tall, essentially just like a single planner. You can either do like a large flower and put them along your stairs, or something like for a tomato plant in your backyard. They end up being pretty versatile planters, and I actually end up selling those more just because they're pretty small. People typically like to grab something at a lower price point like that. But after we do all the initial ripping on the outside, the next thing I need to do is then rip the board, set the table saw fence to the final width that I'm aiming for, which is 2 5/8, and then I can actually rip the board in half. And then after that, I clean up the leftover piece by removing that rough edge. I'm going for 2 5/8 instead of trying to go directly in the middle of the board, because I want to be able to clean up all the edges and make them sure they're nice and clean and get them as straight as possible. These are also old deck boards, they're not straight. So I'm trying to work with the material that I have, but by prepping them the best way that I can. And I also know that I'm going to get a little bit of wastage, and these aren't going to be the perfect pieces. There's going to be some knots and cracks and stuff I have to cut around. So I'm just trying to see again how much usable material I'm able to get out of these old deck boards. They've been sitting around for a while. The first section of them, of these deck boards, went to building that lumber rack in the back inside the tent. And now I have pretty much the last few deck boards here on my workbench. I'm going to make as many planners as I can, and see if I can kind of kickstart my spring and spring season off with a couple sales. But after everything's table saw, we're gonna move over to the miter saw. At this point, I've already kind of came up with about the size of the planners that I wanted to do. So I didn't make a cut list, but I've been thinking about it a little bit. So I'm able to go batch out the legs and all the other pieces at this point, except for like the top cap. And it's not like I actually sat down and thought about a cut list. I probably should have. It would have made this part a lot easier, because then I can actually write it down, give it to you guys. But actually, let me know down in the comments if cut lists for projects that I make, if you guys would be interested in like plans or at least a general cut list. I can definitely start adding those along with these videos, or at least when I go into a build, plan to make a cut list as I do it. That way I can have something to give to you guys. But yeah, definitely let me know down in the comments on that one, because that's something I can definitely add into my videos. We're getting a lot more professional over here at New World Carpentry Solutions. I will say scripts are coming soon. But the first thing I want to do is make sure I cut off all the rough factory edges that I don't like. And then on this workbench, I haven't integrated a tape or a fully integrated stop block yet. But all I have to do is actually mark on the board. Let's say I want 22 inches. Mark it on the board, get it lined up to the blade. I can either clamp the board to the miter saw table and then set my stop block up with 2 clamps and an additional board, or I can kind of just eyeball it, make sure it's lined up with the blade, and then clamp it in place. And then I have essentially a stop block. I just have to kind of adjust it for each cut. There's no tape integrated yet. I recently got a T-track bit, so that's gonna be something I'm gonna be delving into to make cuts like this a lot more repeatable and a lot easier. But at this point, since I'm making essentially a cube, or the small ones are gonna be all cubes. Most of these cuts are all the same, minus the legs and the material that I leave over to make the top cap on it. And since I don't have a cut list, the top cap is something that I can't quite figure out until I have them assembled. But once I actually build a project like this, again, cut list and project plans are something I can start doing. I'm planning to start getting into CAD and getting the computer out here in the shop. I'm recently getting power and everything else right out here. So the shop is definitely coming along. I have a lot of updates to share with you guys. Those are gonna be coming in future videos. But one thing I can say is I love processes like this. Whenever I can batch out a project and I'm making like 10 or 15 of them, and I'm gonna set the miter saw or set the table saw and just crank out parts. It's definitely my favorite, and then I can just go over to my workbench and knock out a bunch of assembly. And if you guys have enjoyed, let me know down in the comments. Leave me a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.